Hello there everybody and welcome back to the long-awaited sequel to literally my most popular video of all time, the new top 10 Brimstone Synergy video in the new DLC, The Binding of Isaac Repentance. For those that may be new to The Binding of Isaac, Brimstone is one of the game's most loved items. Found in devil deals, it turns you into exactly that. A devil, shooting a giant blood barrage laser beam out of Isaac's mouth, obliterating all of the enemies in the room. Even with a tiny nerf in Repentance, it's still one of the best items in the game, and paired with some other items, it can be absolutely game-winning. I'm just gonna be honest with you though, I used to do top 10 videos, but I feel like they're way too limiting at this point. There's too many Brimstone synergies to limit us to just 10. Well, we could do 20, we could do 30, but instead, let's just appreciate an incredible item and look at a ton of the great synergies this item holds. Without further ado, let's get going. The King of SOYMILK returns and he has the new heat in Repentance. Brimstone and SOYMILK no longer gives you carpal tunnel to use it, and instead gives you a nice continuous beam of SOYMILK that you can fire all around the room. While the damage is low, you can use it at range to take care of enemies still pretty quickly. The synergy really shines as you get a few more upgrades to it. Things like homing can really start to make it fun, or if you just want pure power, then obviously rock bottom can be absolutely disgusting as the damage downgrade from SOYMILK won't be applied. Milky Brim is a load of good fun and a good indication of what kind of synergies changed from Brimstone and Repentance, but SOYMILK isn't actually the only Milky Brim in Repentance. Insert almond milk into the equation. This anti-birth turned Repentance item gives you SOYMILK level stats, but with random worm trinkets assigned, so yes, it's absolutely chaotic and a bit uncontrollable, but it looks stupid cool. Speaking of worm trinkets, Brain Worm is a new fun synergy for Brimstone. For those that don't know, Brain Worm makes your tears snap to 90-degree angles to hit enemies when a tear misses. So it's kind of like a perfect auto-aim system. This absolutely works with Brimstone, and the beam will snap and kill enemies that the Brimstone beam would initially not hit. This in turn makes it actually a better form of homing in most rooms. It's stupid strong, and since trinkets are in some ways easier to come by, you might be able to sneak this one into existence pretty often. There's also other worm trinkets that affect how the Brimstone beam looks, but these are a little less strong and are mainly visual, but I mean, come on, they do look really cool, right? Along with Brainworm, there's some other Brimstone synergies that snap the beam against enemies in fun new ways. Parasite, for example, now makes the Brimstone beam split when it hits an enemy or a wall. This results in a kind of high damage perpendicular beam that can wipe through rooms. It can sometimes be advantageous to miss enemies in order to hit multiple enemies at the same time. It kind of just changes the way you think about using Brimstone, and that's what I love about it. Brimstone got a ton of new synergies in Repentance that kind of change how the item works, and the item moved from an insta-win in every scenario to now having some items make it really strong but force your brain to use it differently. And that's what really makes it worth picking up in Repentance, even for Isaac veterans who don't want the easy win. So now let's transition and look at some items that make you have more Brimstone beams, because the more beam, the more fun, right? Presenting 2020, 2 Brimstone beams. Presenting Inner Eye, 3 Brimstone beams. Presenting Mutant Spider, 4 Brimstone beams. Presenting 2020, Inner Eye, and Mutant Spider. I don't know, dude, like 7 Brimstone beams? Presenting 2 2020s, 2 Inner Eyes, and 2 Mutant Spiders. Too many Brimstone beams. Presenting all of that, but I also added like 7 Angelic Prisms. Okay, just stop. We don't always shoot extra beams in just the forward direction though. Maybe we want a little backwards action with, say, Mom's Eye. At just 5 luck, you will always have a second Brimstone beam shooting out of the back of your head, allowing you to deal a pretty massive amount of damage to your front and also your other front. But what if I need more beam, Tyler? I need beam on the verticals, too. Well, Loki's horns is the item for you. Shooting similar to Krampus's head, you can get this effect 100% of the time with just 15 luck on your run. Now, it normally is hard to get 15 luck, but with the Perfection Trinket and a couple of pills, I mean, this is basically infinite Krampus's head. That's pretty strong and really, really fun. So now I'm gonna put you through the Brain Destroyer a little bit. No, not more Brainworm, we're done with him, but what happens if you take Brimstone with Brimstone? Does it give you 2 Brimstone beams like it did in Afterbirth Plus? Well, we're about to find out. Drumroll, please. No, it doesn't. But it does do this. And with 16 Brimstone beams, it looks like this. And we're gonna see how it looks with some other synergies as we go, but let's continue on. Next up, we've got Chocolate Milk. Previously in Afterbirth Plus, these 2 items didn't really have a good unique interaction, it was just a small DPS increase, but now we have a much more interesting item synergy. Now, the Brimstone Beam can be released at any point, similar to Chocolate Milk, and that then affects the size of the beam. So at a full charge, you get this real nice, spicy big boom, but at smaller charges, you get a weaker, more pitiful, less spicy big boom. This is a really unique way to handle this item combination, and I love that they took the time to make it. Now let's go for a weird new item, Eye of the Occult. When you get this combination, the Brimstone Beam will automatically charge, and then attempt to go and hit the target while curving around a little. It can be wonky to control, but once you understand it, you can get some really incredible and massive damage plays in rooms filled with enemies. Obviously, adding things like Brainworm and Homing to this just makes it even more insane of a synergy, but on its own, it's still pretty nuts. I also want to take the time to bring up an item from Afterbirth Plus that I really like with this too. Anti-gravity. You can create the anti-gravity portals around the room that then have their own Eye of the Occult madness when they shoot their Brimstone Beam. It's a really fun way to bring in that old synergy into this new one. This seems like a good time to mention some of the insane synergies that are still in the game from Afterbirth Plus. Tammy's Head Brimstone is still really good and will wipe most rooms. It doesn't benefit from the damage up that Tammy's Head gives you anymore, so it is a bit weaker, but it's still insane and can bust through rooms really quickly, and of course, as well, adding Homing to it just makes it even more insane, and of course, adding another Brimstone to it makes it even more insane. Tiny Planet is also the same as it was in Afterbirth Plus, despite Tiny Planet getting a bit of an overhaul in Repentance. It's fun to get a little circular Brimstone Beam around your head that deals massive damage and protects you from all angles. There aren't many synergies for Brimstone that give you the kind of circular protection around you, and this can be really useful when you get stuck in corners with enemies and such. But while Tiny Planet is the same, My Reflection definitely isn't. This was a bit of an anti-synergy in Afterbirth Plus. They were close to impossible to use together, but My Reflection and Brimstone in Repentance is pretty fun now. Creating a bit of a loop-de-loop with the Brimstone allows you to do similar damage to Mom's Eye with the bit of Brimstone Beam going behind your body, but without the luck requirement. It's such a refreshing change from having the garbage synergy in Afterbirth Plus. I love that they changed this. Mom's Knife in Brimstone is still super fun too. Releasing a barrage of knives out of Isaac's body can wipe out enemies quickly, and it's easily one of the coolest looking synergies in the game. I feel like this is one of the synergies that you show someone first getting into Isaac to convince them that there's a ton of awesome mechanics and synergies in the game. It's been there since Rebirth, still looks just as phenomenal, and it also looks absolutely ridiculous when you combine it with Tiny Planet. I mean, just look at that. My brain is melting just seeing it. Speaking of other items that are normally an insta-win if you pick them up, but you can add Brimstone to it to make it more interesting, Tech X. Arguably the best item in the game in Afterbirth Plus is still very good in Repentance, and it's still a very fun synergy as well. Shooting rings of Brimstone around the room is super satisfying to look at, and you can watch the rooms melt. Ludo is another honorable mention of the Brimstone Synergy family, creating a circular beam of hell that you can freely move around rooms to deal a ton of damage. It's like the devil equivalent of Circle of Protection, except it's, 15 times bigger and stronger and obliterates enemies really quickly. Okay, back to some new ones. Sulfuric Acid. It has all of the brilliant brimstone beaming mechanics combined with the min-maxing mechanics of sulfuric acid. You can crack open every rock, pot, and skull with your brimstone beam, and that creates some insane value because you're then saving your bombs. The same exact kind of rock-destroying synergy also occurs with the TERRA item found inside of planetariums, so you can definitely see this a little bit more often if you decide to go down the planetarium route. I will say, I wish this synergy allowed you to open up secret rooms since sulfuric acid can do that, but sadly it doesn't appear that it can. I'm still happy they took the time to implement this kind of quality of life synergy because it really makes a difference. So now we go into the list of tier modifier adder synergies. What do I mean by this? I mean, look, there's several items that were tier effects that added effects to enemies, but broke and weren't there when picking up brimstone similar to sulfuric acid. Quite a few of them have been updated now to be useful, so let's hop into them. Sinus infection. The brimstone beam can now put the boogers onto enemies, which gives them a pretty massive damage bonus on top of the already strong brimstone beam. Sinus infection is one of the most underrated items in the game, so combining it with an item like brimstone just makes it even better. Holy Light and Brimstone used to waste another great item's potential. Now, we have the ability for the Holy Light to activate on enemies and cause beams of destruction around the room. Holy Light is another one of the most underappreciated items in the game, as that Crack the Sky effect is insane for damage. Having Brimstone be able to spawn it multiple times in the same room? That's just crazy. EXPLOSIVO is another explosive synergy that lands on the list here. Previously doing nothing, now it will generate EXPLOSIVO shots on the enemy when you fire your brimstone beam at them. This allows for both regular enemies and bosses to get absolutely riddled with EXPLOSIVO shots. This kills them pretty quickly, and to be honest with you, this is probably one of the strongest synergies in the game for brimstone, and I'm not even exaggerating. The enemies just don't stand a chance against this one. And speaking of explosive synergies, what if Ipecac synergized properly with brimstone? Well, today might be your lucky day. Now we can have a massive explosive damage burst at the end of our brimstone beam when we hit enemies, rocks, pots, secret rooms. You get the picture. The Ipecac synergies added in Repentance really make this item remain a strong risk-reward item, exchanging beautiful damage for that possible self-explosion no matter the item you get. And a final synergy in the same vein is Jacob's Ladder, everybody's favorite electric item. Okay, the 120 volt is good, we enjoy it too, but I mean, Jacob's Ladder is excellent, and it comes with an excellent new synergy in Repentance. The beam changes colors a bit, and it now generates sparks when hitting objects and enemies in the room, which can create some bursts of damage across enemies, dealing a ton of damage to them. I think the best part of the synergy is just the look, feel, and sound. Hearing the zap of electricity coming out of your brimstone, such a good vibe. I love this synergy. Cricket's Body is a good one for just generating a slew of chaos into your run. Now, the brimstone beam will have random tears flying off of it in all directions whenever you fire. This might not look like it's much, but with some other synergies in this list, you can start to get some really chaotic stuff. For example, let's take like Cricket's Body, My Reflection, and Loki's Horns. How is anything ever going to avoid that? So another new item, we've got Ocular Rift. This vortex creating item can spawn multi-dimensional black holes on our enemies when the brimstone beam hits, sucking them in and then doing a massive amount of damage. This effect feels very similar to one of my favorite synergies from Afterbirth Plus, which was Brimstone and Strange Attractor. It kind of groups a bunch of enemies together, and then you can deal a huge amount of damage to that group of enemies. I love it. Some oldies but some goodies come from the Afterbirth Plus booster pack items. HAEMOLACRIA, Lacrophagy, and Pop. Alone with Brimstone, they each now have pretty unique synergies. HAEMOLACRIA will shoot out little tiny brimstone tears that then split into strong brimstone bursts on a smaller TAMMY'S head scale. Super fun to launch these in the room and then watch the destruction ensue. Lacrophagy now makes Brimstone a short-range weapon, akin to Azazel's Brimstone, but at the end of the beam, you can make a huge Lacrophagy tier that then splits and deals a ton of burst damage in the room. If you don't mind the short range, this can be an absolute killer. Pop creates some new shots around the room when you fire your short-range beam, and can fill the room with a ton of shots quickly that do a lot of damage. This is probably the weakest of the three, but it's still a fun new interaction and an interesting synergy. What really gets interesting though is when you combine all three of these items at the same time with Brimstone. That's right, it removes the Brimstone beam unless you hit an enemy. You fire about one tier every minute that then splits and bursts into a ton of other shots. Once you hit an enemy though, is it strong? Yes. Yes, it is. It'll clear out rooms pretty quick and do a ton of damage. It's just a little slow, but hey, aren't we all? And finally, our last synergy, and maybe the best, Sumptorium. That's right, Tainted Eve's starting item is one of my new favorite Brimstone synergies in Repentance. For those that haven't seen Tainted Eve at all and don't know what Sumptorium does, it essentially removes red hearts from you to create little blood clots that mimic your tears. So essentially with a good deal of hearts, you can create a small army of blood clots that all fire Brimstone. Who needs like 6 mutant spiders when instead you can just spend like 5 red hearts and have a huge barrage of Brimstone firing and wiping rooms? The damage output from this is insane, and you don't get the tears down from adding the extra shots. It's just crazy, cold-hearted damage and one of my favorite synergies in Repentance. Thank you guys so much for watching. This video was a lot of fun to make, albeit a bit longer than my normal top 10s. If you enjoyed this new style, please let me know, as I'd be happy to do some more synergy videos in the future. Yes, I know you want the rock bottom synergy video. It'll come, don't worry. Let me know your favorite Brimstone synergy in the comments down below. You guys can also check out my Everyday Repentance series linked in the description down below. We play through the entirety of the unlocks in Repentance, grinding the 19 new characters, the challenges, the post-its, and just enjoying everything the DLC has to offer. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.